Today we're going to be talking about how to write a song on the piano. So we're going to be talking about the different things we need to figure out really before we start doing that. So a couple of things that you should definitely know before writing your song. Let me get this down here so I can write on it a little bit easier. You should know about chords. I actually have a playlist about chords on the channel. You can also check out the music theory playlist and learn a ton about chords. And then, of course, you can head over to my website where you can learn quite a lot about chords. But you should know the general about chords, like especially major, minor, and probably diminished. Oops. Oh, it doesn't want me to write right there because that's where the title went. So you should know major, minor, diminished, and then, augmented is probably good too, even though they're not used nearly as often. So let's review some chords, shall we? So I have a question for everybody in the chat. What kind of chord sounds the happiest out of those four? Major, minor, diminished, or augmented? So I'll give everybody a chance to answer. While you are thinking about it, I want to introduce myself. Many of you know who I am. I'm Tim, and I'm creator of Lessons on the Web. It's really a channel that helps teach piano lessons to people who may not have the opportunity to learn piano, or they want some extra practice, or they just can't afford piano lessons. So that's what we're all about, to give you a basic to intermediate piano and music education for free. How great is that? Okay, major. I got lots of majors. Perfect. So major is the brightest and happiest. And, some easy major chords to know about are C major. That's C, E, and G. You got F major and G major. So these three I want you to know about because these are the white key major chords, meaning they all have all white keys. The other major chords always have some sort of black key involved, or maybe even two black keys depending on, or three depending on where you are on the piano. So C major, C, E, and G, F major, F, A, and C, G major, G, B, and D. So become familiar with those, but if you want to know how to make a major chord perfect on any note, say we have A flat and you're like, man, I just don't know the spacing, because the spacing isn't even between all the notes, as we know. So what you need to do is you play the note that you just played. I played A flat, right? And what you're going to do, this is the most important part, not including the note you're playing, you have to count up 4 half steps. And by the way, a half step is the smallest amount of movement you can make on a piano. So if I play all the notes in between, I'm moving in half steps. So you count 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your second note. You have your bottom note, your middle note, and then your top note from the middle note. You don't count the middle note. This is very important. So you hit that note, and then you count up 3. Then you play all the notes at once. So you have 4 between the bottom and the middle, and then you have 3 from the middle to the top. If you do that, you can make a major chord built on any note. And then eventually you'll have them all memorized. Like, you'll just have them memorized. They'll be really easy to play. But in the beginning, you'll have to count the steps. And then obviously, you'll know if you have it right because it'll sound happy, like so many of us have mentioned already. So make sure you know your major chords. The chord that sounds sad is minor. That's the opposite. So if I had C minor, that'd be C, E flat, G. I have a tip for you. If you're in major already, the only difference between a major chord and a minor chord, so long as it's what's called in root position, meaning it's evenly stacked. See how there's a note, there's not a note, there's a note, not a note, note. And if you ever had that written on paper or on this, it would look something like this. Oops. That's not what it looks like. Here's what it looks like. So as you notice, it's evenly stacked like a snowman. That's your major chord. And then the only difference between a major chord and a minor chord is that middle note. You will be lowering that middle note by a half step to make a minor chord. So I'd make that C, E flat G, That would help if it worked. There we go. See, E flat G to make C minor. And you just want to be aware of your minor chords. So why are these two chords really important? Well, songs, right, can usually be happy, sad, or somewhere in between. They can be scary, they can be a mix of emotions, they can be very tense. But you want to know what sounds happy and what sounds sad when writing your song, because in general, like, the subject matter of the song will either be on the happier side, be on the sadder side, or somewhere in the middle, or scary, or some other emotion. So it's important to know your chords, because you'll know what chords are associated with what emotion. And a lot of music has emotion involved. Okay, diminished, which I spelled horribly here because I had to write it down on a slant. Diminished chord is very tense. And by the way, to make a minor chord on any note, you hit the note, count 3, and then you count 4. So it's the opposite of before. With major, it was 4 then 3. This is 3 then 4, and a diminished is 3 and 3. So you hit your note, you go 1, 2, 3, you go 1, 2, 3, and then you play them all at once, and that gives you a C diminished chord. You want to practice finding all the diminished chords you can. By the way, B diminished is the easiest one because it is the only all white key diminished chord out there. B, D, and F. Okay, and then augmented is the formula is 4 and 4. Hit the note, you got 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like major. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's actually a major chord with the top note raised a half step. And by the way, for terminology's sake, every chord has what's called a root, the bottom note. Well, if it's in root position, it's the bottom note. If it's stacked evenly, like I said before, it has a third, and then it has a fifth. So you may be asking why it isn't called the first, second, and third, since there's only 3 notes. Well, I'll explain. Those numbers, the first, the third, and the fifth, or the root, the third, and the fifth, same thing, first and root. That corresponds to the note in the scale. So if you have the C major scale, you have notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You have notes 1, 3, and 5 out of that scale press. So that's why it's called 1, 3, and 5, and not 1, 2, and 3. So just be aware that those chords exist when you're writing your music. So I have a question. You want to be also aware of harmony and melody. So if we're talking about chords, generally, are we talking about harmony or are we talking about melody? I'll give people just a second to respond. Manny says melody. Does anybody have a different answer? So we're talking about chords, which are usually read up and down. So melody is not a bad answer. But melody, somebody else says melody. Let's see, does everybody agree that it's melody? Let's see. Okay, it is actually, sorry if you're still in the middle of typing this in, it is actually harmony. When you write chords, chords are a way to describe harmony. Blueberry says harmony, you're correct there, Blueberry, great. So you have 3 notes stacked on top of each other right here, right? You have C, E, and G. Since those notes are read up and down like this, boom, that is harmony. Actually, I'm going to erase this, as this is where I will write the song. Just know that if you're watching this video, maybe you can take a screen capture, but the up and down notes are harmony. And then, if I have notes on top, say I have like, let's try this. So say I have these notes up top. Alright everybody, this has been Tim from Lessons on the Web. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to give this video a thumbs up if you learned something, and subscribe because more terrific lessons are of course on the way. And if you subscribed and did all that stuff already, like the video, yada yada, head over to my website, lessonsontheweb.com, where you can learn much more about playing the piano, music theory, and all kinds of good stuff. So this has been Tim from Lessons on the Web, and have a great one, and I'll see you for the next video.